So the whole deal falls apart. Everybody's upset. And then we go to the house, and over the weekend, the buyers removed the kitchen. The kitchen is on the front lawn by the street for the garbage guys to pick up. There's no kitchen in the house.
Welcome back to Coffee Talk with Mel. This is episode 2, Real Estate Horror Stories with my bestie, Lisa Russo. I'm going to start with one of my horror stories that I actually talk about on buyer and seller presentations, because the moral of the story is it's never a done deal until you have that money in your bank account.
That's right.
So I was representing the seller, and this older couple, super nice, came in, we negotiated it, and we were under contract. We were through all the contingencies. We were through the mortgage contingency. We were through the inspection contingency. They even had a carpet company come out and measure so that the carpets could be installed right away on the day of the closing. So they had that already all taken care of. So we're probably about 3 days from the closing. It was actually a Friday, and we were supposed to close the following Tuesday. Mm-hmm. And I remember my phone went off at 5 a.m. and I said, who is calling me at 5 a.m.? Now, I remember they were nervous about a cat, and it was a condo, and I wasn't sure if the cat could be part of the condo. So I'm like, is this about the cat?
Yeah.
Like, whatever. I said, I got to answer it. And I said, hello, the woman's name. And she said, Melanie, I'm so sorry. I don't know what to do, but I just had to call you and tell you, but my husband died in my arms last night of a heart attack, and so I don't know what I want to do about the condo. I said, oh my gosh.
This is the day of the closing?
This is 3 days before closing.
Oh, gotcha.
So Friday, we were supposed to close on Tuesday.
Yeah.
I was like, I am so sorry. I said, you need to go be with your family and go, follow up with me next week. And of course, I get off the phone. I'm like, oh my God, what is going on? How am I going to fix this? And, is she still going to want to buy it? And so, because she was buying it with her husband, and they were going to just,
live happily ever after.
Exactly. So she ends up following up with me on I think it was Monday or Tuesday or whenever it was, and was like, you know what, Melanie, I am so sorry, but I just can't, my heart can't do it. I can't buy the condo. Mm-hmm. I get it.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, the buyer died 3 days before closing. Crazy enough, so this is just a fun real estate fact. If you are through all the contingencies, no matter what happens, the buyer loses the deposit.
Sure.
So again, on the do the right thing,
in
our listing contracts, we can always do a portion that we retain, for all of our hard work that we do, even when a transaction fails. So I got that money, and you know what I did? Mm-hmm. I immediately called the buyer and said, meet me at this coffee shop up in Northern Rhode Island, and I'll give you your money back. And she's like, no. And I was like, yes, I am not taking your money. I am so sorry this happened to you. And I have to say, it was the best thing I ever did. And I started just doing so well after that. And I'm telling you, it's because I did the right thing. Yeah. So as I tell every seller and buyer, it's never a done deal, because I had a buyer die 3 days before closing. So Lisa, please share your fun horror stories.
I don't think I've had anybody die.
Really?
But yeah, I don't think so. Nothing's coming to mind, but I do have a good one. And I tell this one a lot too. So I had a house, actually, I don't want to get too into it, but somebody did die. And anyway, so she had to sell her home. So I put the house on the market. I got a buyer for it. We went through inspections. Inspections were the craziest inspector that I've ever met in my life. And I've never seen him again, but that's a whole other episode, maybe for another podcast.
That's a great episode.
So anyway, we get through all of that, and it's a Friday afternoon, and I had the afternoon off. So it's summer. I had him in shorts and t-shirt. I'm working in the garden, whatever. And my seller calls me, and she says, are you on your way? And I said, on my way where? And she's like, to the attorney's office. The attorney just called me and said, we're closing at 1:00. And I'm like, no, we're not closing today. Nobody told me this. So she's like, Lisa, I'm on my way there. He called me and told me I had to go. Now remember, this is the buyer's attorney. So I'm like, what the hell's going on, right? So I jump in the car in my shorts. I fly up to Providence to see what's going on. And yeah, he's doing a closing. He completely cut me out of it. And he told the seller to come in to sign her paperwork. So I find out that they don't even have a payoff yet for my seller's loan. They're just trying to push this closing because the buyers have 2 little kids and they don't have any place to live for the weekend. So I explained that I do not think it's a good idea. I knew we were close. There was a lot of moving parts. And I'm like, I don't think it's a good idea. I just wait until Monday. They can find a place. They've got to have family or something. And they're doing the whole sob story. And my client's the sweetest little woman. And she's like.
You get all the sweet old ladies, by the way.
She was younger than me. She wasn't a little lady. She had 2 little kids herself. So anyway,
you get all the sweet women.
So she feels terrible for these people who are sitting right in front of her practically crying, and she's like, no, it's fine, we'll close and I'll give her the keys and they can move in. So I'm like, okay.
And you said this was on a Friday, right?
It's on a Friday afternoon.
Friday.
So on a Friday afternoon, we don't have the payoff, so it's not going on record, and we don't have a payoff. So we're signing all the paperwork, and the payoff's coming Monday. No payoff. That's why I didn't want to close. And so the weekend comes and goes, and we Monday comes, and the payoff comes in, and the payoff is higher than what I sold the house for.
I knew you were going to say that, Lisa.
So we can't sell. I mean, she doesn't have any money to bring to closing. So, I mean, she has nothing. She just lost her partner, her husband, and she doesn't have any money. So the whole deal falls apart. So everybody's upset. And then we go to the house, and over the weekend, the buyers removed the kitchen. The kitchen is on the front lawn by the street for the garbage guys to pick up. There's no kitchen in the house. So now, not only does she still own the home, she owns a home without a kitchen. She's all moved out. She's moved to North Kingstown or wherever she went. And now I have a house with no kitchen to sell, which, it's kind of hard when you do that. So anyway,
I did it once.
That's my horror story. It gets much worse because then we ended up having to do a short sale because she couldn't afford. We couldn't find a buyer for the. So we ended up doing a short sale, and then then it gets into winter. The house flooded. I was there one night pumping the basement out. My husband and I pumped in the basement out. Yeah, it was a nightmare. But
my gosh.
I did end up selling it as a short sale, and the woman that lives there with her daughter, who's a very good friend of mine, they're happily ever after, and everybody worked out. But that's a good horror story for me.
So let me ask you this question: Did the attorneys have a use and occupancy agreement signed for that transaction?
I don't remember.
Because I feel as though I really, really advise clients against that.
Oh, I do too. But if we do let it, you have to have that agreement. But I don't know. This attorney that allowed all this to happen, not a nice person, obviously, not very professional. I doubt he even did it. I honestly don't remember. I don't. It was many, many years ago, but that's my biggest horror story.
My heart is like this because I just did this. I just closed a couple of weeks ago when my seller did a rent back. And of course, the buyer was fine with it because we're in a real estate market, right? Like buyers basically have to be like, whatever you want.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was so nervous for it. It all worked out. But that sounds absolutely horrible. And I'm sure they put the kitchen out by the curb, and I'm sure half the people came and took half the kitchen, so she couldn't even put the kitchen back in.
Oh, it wasn't even
if she wanted.
It wasn't even an option.
Wow!
Yeah,
wow,
no, it was crazy.
How funny.
All right, I pass the baton to you for number 2.
With that being said, I want to just tell those that don't know what a payoff is when you have a house, you get title pulled so it can show any open mortgages or any open liens on the property, and the mortgage company submits a payoff to the attorney, and the attorney sends a check at closing. So I've never closed on a house without a payoff. But this is going to lead into my next story. So I went to high school with the wife, and it was a couple, and they were looking to buy a house. And, it takes a little while sometimes. We found the perfect house. It was a little split level, right? 1950s split level. My buyer's over the moon. We got the transaction. Actually, it's kind of funny. We were picked because I had worked with this agent before, and we had worked really well together, and we did a crazy escalation clause. And the escalation clause, that appraisal actually came in. on that. I know, even back then. Mm-hmm. So buyers are super excited. The seller was kind of in a financial position, so I knew it was really hard for her, but she was going to sell her house and she was going to make $85,000 and she was going to be able to pay off a bunch of stuff.
Yep.
So, because when we were in the negotiations for the inspection, that's what the agent said. Oh, there's not a lot of money, Mel. There's not a lot of money. So no problem. So buyers are super happy. We go to the walkthrough. House looks great. They're so excited. We get to the closing table and the seller's sister had come with her for moral support. So the attorney sits down, is going over the numbers and is like, all right, your payoff is X amount of dollars. And then there's an additional $80,000 payoff on a second.
Oh, no.
Because she did a loan modification. So I'm sitting here. The buyers are sitting next to me. Their faces go white.
Yep.
The sister across the way is like just shaking her head. And the seller says, I have to step out. And you could just see the tears welling. My heart actually bled for the poor woman. Yeah. She took a step out with her real estate agent. And so I didn't think we were going to close, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
And then we're sitting there with the sister, and the sister is an attorney, is an attorney in like a different field. And the sister said, don't worry, guys, I'm going to force her to close. And that $80,000 that she owes it to me. So the repercussions of her not closing today are going to be way more than her closing today. Mm. So luckily we were like in there, we were like sweating, but the seller came back and she signed off on everything. But this is something that on certain transactions that I do that I might not be super trusting, or I'll ask the question, have you ever done a loan modification? Because I feel as though a lot of people have. Yeah. So I'll always ask the question because, you know, buyers are liars and sellers are tellers, right? That's what they say. So with that, hit me with another story.
All right. It's not a horror story. Well, it is a horror story. It's kind of a gross story. So
I love it.
I had a house in
hopefully there's blood. No, I'm just kidding.
No blood. Sorry, it's worse. But my stories tend to be back in the day when there were short sales and foreclosures, probably because the stress was high and there were so many weird things going on. But so I had I was one of the approved agents that handle a lot of things for one of the banks that did a lot of loan mods and stuff like that. So they contact me and they give me an address and they say, reach out to this person. You know, she hasn't paid her mortgage in a long time. We're doing what's called cash for keys. So if you move, if you don't know, cash for keys is when you the owner of the home moves out, takes all their stuff out, and then the bank will actually pay them to help them put down money on a rental or whatever. So I explain cash for keys and I make an appointment to go over and look at the house so I know, what we're up against. And made about 3 appointments to look at the house and she always canceled. She wasn't feeling well. She was home from sick. She didn't want to sell the house. She didn't want to sell. Well, nobody wants to sell when they're not getting anything out of it. But I felt like it was something else. But I didn't know what it was. And this house was like not too far from my house. So I drove by quite a few times. I'm like, all right, it looks like it was a typical, Warwick ranch, 3-bed, 1-bath ranch. So we finally get to the day where she has to move out. And I still haven't met her other than talking to her on the phone. And I haven't been to the house. So I have her check for her cash for keys. And I said to her, I've got to go in and just make sure you moved out. And then you'll get your check. You can be on your way. So it's on a somewhat busy road. And I park across the street. And I wait for traffic to pass and I cross the road. And as soon as I got to the sidewalk in front of her house, I could smell the house.
Ooh, that's never a good sign when you can smell the house from the outside.
What is going on? So I walk into this house and it's all cleaned out. But in this 3-bedroom ranch, one of the bedrooms was where her dogs used for a toilet. And the dogs didn't go outside. That was their bathroom, one of the rooms, just filthy, and had removed the carpet.
Did you put a mask on? Did you put anything over your face? How did you even breathe?
I think probably just a shirt or something. Wow. But anyway, so she had removed the carpet from the living room years and years ago, and had walked on the
hardwood floors,
so the subfloor. Subfloor.
It wasn't even hardwood floors. It was
plywood. It was plywood subfloor, and she had walked on it so much and for so long that it was shiny and smooth, and the knots were higher than the rest of the wood. Yeah, it was something. So even when I ended up selling it to an investor who anything
they all
could be
sell.
fixed.
Yep. They all sell.
And the fire department walked in and went screaming, running out. And he's like, I will write up your paperwork on the hood of the car out in the driveway.
Yeah, I believe you.
He's like, you go in and push the button. And when I hear it,
I'm going to do this.
Yeah. So that was my, I was probably, there's lots of smelly houses out there, but that was my grossest one.
That sounds so gross.
Yeah. And the house was all hardwood floors in the bedroom. So that was like, all of that was in the hardwood floors.
So kind of a funny story. I'm just going to kind of like sneak this one in there. So you say that about you're letting the animals use that room, right? So I actually just went to go look at a house a few weeks ago, and I walked in and I was hit with this smell. And it's one of my investors, and he's owned the house for over 20 years and only had 2 tenants, but the last tenant was there for a decade, and he was a hoarder. So, you know, he couldn't really figure out where that smell was coming from, but he knew it was an animal odor, right?
Yeah.
And goes in the basement. I didn't even go in the basement. The first day I went into the house, the smell was so atrocious. Yeah. I couldn't even step foot in the basement.
Oh, it's hard. You can't even breathe. It shuts your lungs down.
Oh my goodness. And so I call him. I said, what is going on in that house? And please tell me you have something that can get rid of that smell, because this is bad. And he says, you're never going to believe it. I was like, what? He goes, they've been letting the cat shit in the basement for 10 years. No litter box.
Oh, God.
No litter. The back portion of the house was like waist high with just cat poop.
Oh my gosh.
Just cat poop. He was like, Mel, I'm literally shoveling cat shit. And I was like, well, once you shovel it all out and then you put your little air purifier thing in there, let me know and then I'll go back. But it's crazy what people will let their animals or even let their humans do.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We've seen a lot of things we shouldn't have seen.
A lot of things. So I know you mentioned, with that last one, the one before about a short sale. So I actually have a horror story on a short sale as well too. I was representing the buyer. She was a first-time home buyer. I was so proud of her. She was so excited, right? Yeah. And it was this cute little cape. And I remember thinking this is going to be perfect for her. It had a little yard. She was fostering some dogs. I mean, just a really great person. And obviously we want all of our clients to feel good when they move into a home. So we get there for the day of the inspection, and it was cold. So I think it was December, but it was cold. And one of the inspectors that I use all the time, he was the one that was doing the inspection, and he was like, Mel, I hear running water. And I was like, I didn't think anything of it. I'm like, sure you do. Yeah. I use the lockbox. It's a short sale. I use the lockbox. I get into the house, and I step, and it's wet. And then I step again, and it's wet. And then I see the dining room, and there's maybe half an inch of water. And I'm like, this isn't good. I already knew at that point that the baseboards had frozen, and obviously the water came out. I was like, let me just look in the basement. I opened the door to the basement. All the way up to the first step was water. The whole entire basement was filled with water. The oil tank was underwater. It was up to where the electrical box was. So I closed the door. I walked out of the house.
Are you talking about the top step?
Yes.
Oh gosh, I thought you meant the bottom top step.
No, like the whole basement. Yep. I mean, it must have been 8 feet of water. Yeah. I had never seen anything like it. I've been into houses where they've had water in the basement, but I've never seen like that much because it was a vacant house. It was a short sale. Nobody was checking on it. So I walked right out, and I looked at the buyer and I said, honey, you're not buying this house. I'm sorry. It's just not going to work. And so, the inspector and I still laugh about that today.
Well, it's funny you say that. Now, this wasn't one of my horror stories, but you made me think of it. A ranch in Warwick. We went to view it. It was not a short sale. It was not a foreclosure. There were people living in the house. I'm showing the house. The realtor the seller's agent did not show up.
I'm sorry, you said the people who are living in the house, were they actually physically there?
Oh yeah. They stayed home for the showing. They were in the house living there. It was an older couple.
Can we just tell people, don't have your sellers be at the house? It's awkward.
Oh, that's not even it. So we get there and we're walking through on our own, and they're like, yeah, just walk around. It's no big deal. And we get to the basement, and they're like, oh, just be careful in the basement. There was 3 feet of water in the basement, and they were living in the house knowing that there was 3 feet of water in the basement. How unhealthy is that? Mold, everything.
Honestly, it makes me sad.
It just does make you sad. They I don't know I don't know why they weren't fixing it, or it just boggles the mind.
Isn't it amazing going into people's homes?
Yeah, you just never know what you're going to come up against.
You never know what you're walking into. And everybody lives differently, right? Wow.
Whether it's wrong or right, everybody's different anyway. But I mean,
100%.
Certain things like cat poop and dog toilets and
100%
and needing a boat to go do your laundry.
I just thought of another one. This is a good one, right? So this is kind of on the whole short sale thing. So there was this house, and it was really it was cute. It was a little dirty. They actually let the dog poop
again. Yeah.
So
seems to be recurring.
And it was a big dog, so I think he was just old. I actually felt really bad for the dog. But anyway, so it was when we had a ton of snow and the driveway was really long, and I was waiting for them to plow the driveway. And then I scheduled 12 showings back to back, 15-minute intervals. You know how we do, right?
Yep.
And I remember it was in February. And so I pull into the driveway, make sure there's an area where people can turn around, get in and out, So this young couple, so I'm standing in the kitchen, I got, my real estate outfit on, and I'm like, I'm going to sell a house today, right? Like Annette Bening in American Beauty, opening the curtains. I will sell this house today. I was channeling it, and this young couple comes in, and they're like, hi. I'm like, oh, hi, I'm Melanie. Like, this is a house. Da, da, da. It might take a little while because it's a short sale, but, it's, I feel confident it'll go through, all that stuff. And so they're walking around, and they walk into the garage, and they come out, and they're like, excuse me. And I said, yes. They go, did you know there's a dead chicken in the garage? No.
You didn't know?
I just thought on my feet, and I was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. Why don't you just look at the rest of the house and, come back? So I'm thinking, I got 11 more people coming through this house.
Right.
I don't want anyone else to see a dead chicken. I don't even want to see the dead chicken, but I had to go look at the dead chicken.
Of course.
Chicken was dead.
What'd you do?
And it was this dirty rug on the ground in the garage. I picked up the dirty rug, like this, like barely touching it. Put it on top of the chicken. The 11 other parties that came through walked in the garage. No big deal. Had no idea that there was a dead chicken in the house that they were looking at.
I've never had a dead chicken.
The best part of this story, the buyers that found the dead chicken bought the house.
Did they want the chicken?
Said, hey, the food comes free. No.
Yeah. That's great. I've never had a dead chicken. I've had a couple of dead mice I've had to kick into a closet or something once in a while just to get through the showing. But
what's funny is I was actually looking at a house for myself right in Governor Francis over here on that one on Westfield. And I've been driving by this house for months and months and months. I knew it was going to eventually come on the market. And they did a clean out. It was a foreclosure. And I go in, and I'm in the basement. I'm like, something smells like dead. I mean, this house was nasty, right? I mean, I've never seen so much mouse poop in my life. But I'm in the basement, and I'm like, and I look down, dead squirrel right at my feet. I was like, ugh. But that was like minimal in comparison, I mean, how many houses have we shown, especially during the foreclosure boom that were crazy like that.
I'm just glad there were no dead people.
I know, right?
And a couple of squatters, but
yeah, I feel like the squatting is pretty typical. Yeah. Do you have any other stories you can think of?
I have one that's not gross, but kind of a funny story, because you think that these things happen to like lower end houses, right? So I sold this beautiful home in Oak Hill in Pawtucket, like on the east side, Providence.
Oh, I love Oak Hill.
And
I love the character of those old houses.
Yeah, this was a gorgeous house. My clients were so excited, and we go to the walkthrough, and we're going to close it. We're going to sign and close in an hour, and the people that moved out. And we're talking like before the market took off, we're still talking $700,000-800,000 here. So they had a lot of artwork and things on the wall, and they took all their artwork down, and normally there's a hole, but they had used command strips. And instead of pulling the tab on the command strip,
they pulled the whole thing.
Holes in the plaster in every single room throughout this entire house. Could not believe it. And the realtor was just like, acting like they weren't there. Like I thought I was imagining things. Like everybody else sees this, right?
You're like, am I really here right now?
So
they didn't ask for anything.
So my clients were having people come in to do painting and plastering anyway. So she
was like, I just don't care.
Didn't care. And,
but see, that's what it is. It's so shocking, right?
Yeah.
It's always shocking when you get to the end.
Yeah. And you think it's done, but it's not always done.
That's why we say it's never a done deal until you have that money in your bank account.
In your bank, it doesn't matter if it's signed
because it doesn't. Because the payoff might be wrong. Oh, that's actually a good story for attorneys to be like, don't be like this one.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't do this.
Exactly.
But it's funny that 11th hour stuff with the walkthrough. So I had a situation. I mean, this young couple, super nice. They wanted to be in one specific location. We really looked at a handful of houses, and finally, and it's so funny because his wife didn't want to look at this house, right? And he kind of like forced her into it. I'm pretty sure he didn't tell her. He was just like, let's go for a ride, and like brought her to the house, right?
Look at this, happens to be open.
Yeah, and the location was so great. I mean, it was just maybe two streets away from the water. The bike path was right in front of them in Bristol. Nice. I mean, absolutely gorgeous. Yeah. So we, have the home inspection, and it was an estate sale. Okay. So as an estate sale, obviously you and I know, but in case for anyone listening doesn't, it means that somebody has passed away and that they,
let's go through probate.
Heirs are, selling the house. This particular estate sale was 5 siblings. You know how hard that is, right? Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't know that one of them was, off something. And so we were supposed to close on a Friday before Memorial Day weekend. And so the kids had to be out of their apartment by the 1st, right? Because that was when their lease was going to end. Mm-hmm. And it was already re-rented. So they had to be out of their house. Yep. They do not have family in the state of Rhode Island. They don't have anywhere to live.
Right.
So the Thursday afternoon or night or whatever it was, before the closing on Friday, everyone was all set. We were all ready to go. I'm pretty sure they even had the cashier's check. I mean, that's how close we were. Mm-hmm. And the other agent was another RE/MAX agent. She was phenomenal. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So she calls me and she's like, Melanie, I have to tell you something. We're not closing tomorrow. And I said, okay, but my people need a place to live. Mm-hmm. And she goes, I understand. She goes, you're never going to believe this. All the kids went in to sign the deed because, as you know, the sellers have to sign the deed before recording down at town hall, and that's how the process goes. So 4 of the siblings signed, no problem. Well, one of the siblings decided to stick her heels in the sand, and said, nope, I'm not signing it. I think my siblings stole all mom's jewelry. So she made a big stink. Wow. And we couldn't close because of it. So I had to think quick, and I was like, you know what? I am just going to ask if they'll do a rent back. I'll ask. The worst that happens is they say no. I hadn't even told my clients yet, right? Because I'm trying to.
I know, we always try to fix it before we let anybody know what's going on.
That's why we're good at what we do.
Exactly.
And that was the hardest thing. I was thinking, I was like, how am I gonna make this? I was like, I cannot tell them. And so I was like, hey, do you think we can do like a rent back? How long do you think it's gonna take? They're like, the agent said, well, we have to do a court order for this woman. The woman had to go in front of a judge. The judge had to say, I order you to sign this. And she had to physically sign it. And you know how long courts take, right? Mm-hmm. So we actually ended up negotiating a rent back. And I called my clients and I said, do you want the good news or you want the bad news? Most people take the bad news first, right? And I said, we're not closing tomorrow, but you're still going to be able to move in tomorrow. So they were like, okay, I totally understand. And I mean, luckily the house was vacant, so they were able to move in. Yeah. We did a use and occupancy just in case, right? Something crazy happened.
In case he took out the kitchen.
Exactly.
You never know.
And then what ended up happening was it took about 35 days to close. Oh, so it took a really long time. But luckily the rate was locked for a while. And it was when I think rates were lower anyway, so it didn't really matter. But luckily they were locked in, and I got them out of the sticky situation. And I think all of the stories that we're saying and telling today, we really just want to hammer home that there is always a solution.
There's always a solution. You got to be creative, and you've got to be able to think and work on your feet. but you always act in your client's best interest and you're going to get them to the finish line.
Because if you what?
What? Oh, do the right thing. If you do the right thing, it all works out in the end. Absolutely. For everybody, for us, for them, for everybody. So
Exactly.
You just need to protect their interests. That's all.
So I think I have one more, but let's turn it over to Lisa. Give me another shocker that you have in your real estate tool belt.
Let's see.
I know I have so many. I'm like, which one am I going to close with?
I had a foreclosure in Smithfield, this beautiful home one time. And it was up this long private driveway. So I was like afraid to go up there by myself. It's a foreclosure. You never know what you're up against. And a couple things happened with that house. The first time I went to the house, there were 3 very mean dogs inside with like full glass doors in the front.
Which is funny because you're a dog person and dogs just absolutely adore you. I mean, you literally rescued a dog last night from...
I did, yeah. I did actually. I did actually.
Yeah. So why I'm saying that is because, you never are scared of dogs or mean dogs or anything like that. But there's only bad owners, right?
There were renters that had been in this big, beautiful house renting, and then it got foreclosed on, and there was a whole backstory to girlfriends and marriages that didn't work out, but we won't get into that right
However
now.
that turned out.
But the renters left the 3 dogs in the house. They moved out. They left the dogs behind and emptied 40 pounds of kibble on the floor in the living room and then just put buckets of water out. And these poor dogs were living in this house. They never went out.
My heart is broken.
It was
for
awful.
them.
It was absolutely awful. So we had to get the dogs out because I couldn't go in the house. And they left behind over $5,000 electric bill with National Grid. Yep. Thank God I didn't have to pay for that one.
Wow.
And what else happened? Then it got broken into. I actually had somebody break into that house by crawling through the doggy door. So always be careful your doggy door is not too big. And
I am going to take that note because I never even thought about somebody crawling through a doggy door.
I had to have one of my guys go over there and board it up so that they couldn't. Somebody crawled through and stole all the copper piping, and then they kept coming back, so we had to board it up.
Oh my gosh. And it's funny, as you're talking about the copper thing, that's going to lead into another story I have. So I was going to a walkthrough, and it's with my investor, and of course it was a foreclosure, right? And it was in Providence, and there was a listing agent. And so we walk in to the house and we go into the basement, and someone had stolen all 4 heating systems.
Oh, wow.
4, count them, 4.
You got to wonder, isn't nobody paying attention when these people are taking the stuff out of the basements back
then?
It's
got to be in the middle of the night, right? But
still, even more to focus on it.
I know. It was just so bizarre.
It's not exactly a quiet thing to do.
How do you steal 4 heating systems and nobody knows? How does that happen? Maybe you get a piece at a time. I don't know. You do it over a 30-day period. I don't know. That was so crazy. And it was a foreclosure, and dealing with the bank on something like that. And of course I was like, is this going to close? Is this not going to close? Oh my gosh. Da, da, da. Yeah. And luckily it did because they all closed.
They all do.
Eventually. I can't believe that. The dogs, that is so crazy and sad.
It was very sad. It was really sad. Imagine leaving your pets behind. I could never.
No, I can't even leave stuff behind, Lisa. You know me well enough to know that.
we can't leave our pets behind for more than 3 hours without going home and letting them out.
But we are very lucky to be able to do that. We're very lucky. So I have one more story. Do you have any other stories that you want to just
I have a million more, but
with?
I will let you close yours, and I will save mine for another time.
So this story is, I was frustrated. Let's just put it that way. So I'm going to give you a little story. So it was... this man, he was buying the house. His girlfriend at the time, who was not on the house with him, was part of the transaction. Really great woman. Mm-hmm. Love her. But she had said he didn't need to do a septic inspection. And so VA buyers always need to do a septic inspection
right.
and a water quality test.
Yep.
And I had said that, I want to say 12 times. But she was like, no, they don't. And I was like, okay. maybe you do know more than me.
Yeah, maybe.
You know what? Because in this life, I'm learning we don't always know everything.
No.
Very hard for me, but it's making me a better person. So luckily, the commitment letter comes out, right? And it says subject to septic inspection and water quality test.
You were right. Yep.
So I'm sweating. I'm mad. I call my buyer and I said, duh. You can imagine how I was. And so he was like, okay, well, we'll get it done. And I said, okay, well, I have to ask if we can, because we're through the inspection contingency where, we just got commitment and the seller was a builder. So that could have gone either way, right? And the agent was the daughter.
Oh, even worse. Okay.
So I said, all right, Mel, you got to pull up your bootstraps and you got to make this one happen, because it was also contingent on them selling. So it was like a twofer, as we call it, right? The double, the sell and the buy. So I'm sweating. And I remember, and I'll never forget. So they let us come in like right away. I was able to get Bill D'Alessandro. He's like absolutely amazing. He knows everything about cesspools, septics, all that. So I rushed him out there. The seller stayed, and their grandkids were there. So we're in the backyard. And so what the inspectors do is they take the cover off, and he had the cover propped up with a shovel, right? So the shovel's hanging out here and the top's here. He even had cones. He did everything he was supposed to do, above and beyond. And it was a newer system, right? So I didn't think anything of it. I was like, it's going to be fine. We're all talking. And I remember being like, all right, let's go. Because it was one of our friends' parties that she was throwing. It was going to be a Friendsgiving. And I had never had the, what is that? The fried turkey.
Oh yeah. We did the deep fried turkey that year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I had never had the deep fried turkey, and I couldn't wait. You know me with food. I couldn't wait to try the deep fried turkey. So I'm like, all right, let's go. And he's testing it. And all of a sudden the grandkid runs by and kicks the shovel, or trips over the shovel. The concrete cover goes into the system. The PVC pipe gets broken in the system. Oh my God. Water starts gushing. I mean, like fire hydrant style, right? Wow. Everywhere. And like everyone just starts to panic. Yeah. I do have to say, I was in full panic mode. I didn't know what to do. And I was like, how am I going to fix it? I'm going to fix it. And I was like, you know what? It is what it is. And, obviously like everyone in the transaction was like,
oh, good thing they were all there watching and they knew what happened. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Heightened. So, I never thought about that. And obviously the inspector was frustrated, right? Because there's not supposed to be children running around at the inspection. The buyers were frustrated because, they didn't think that they were going to actually have to do this. Right. The seller's frustrated because we were through the inspection contingencies.
And it's their fault.
And I said to the inspector, do whatever you have to do. And there was like an electrical piece that was like hanging, right? With the water, dying. So we all, the inspector takes care of it, stops it, and then is like, I'm going to have to come back to fix this. So we all leave. I got to be honest with you. That was probably one of the problems that I didn't know how I was going to solve. Yeah. And I luckily took a deep breath. Yeah. I met you at Friendsgiving.
We had fried turkey.
We had fried turkey and I was all stressed out. And I just remember you saying, there's got to be a solution. I just remember you saying, don't worry about it. It will all work itself out. And so the following day, I called the buyers, I called the listing agent, and I ended up actually paying for a portion of the septic repair because I felt bad, right?
Right.
And my buyer actually ended up paying for a portion of it too. And they still live in the house today. Yeah. So at the end of the day, it's always a success story. But let me tell you,
getting to the end of the success part is sometimes a hurdle.
I mean, 2 or 3. It was so, I was so scared in that backyard. And I remember it was like beautiful in December. I mean, beautiful in November or November, December, whenever it was. I think it was right after Thanksgiving. And I remember it wasn't supposed to be that nice, And so it was really, 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 really one of those moments where once we closed, I said to myself, wow.
Just when you think you've seen everything.
Just when I think I have seen absolutely everything in real estate, things just keep coming back. I mean, I know you and I could sit here all day and just,
we could,
probably have 20 more stories apiece. And that's why this is part one
exactly
of Real Estate Horror Stories. So I can't wait to have you back for part two.
Yes.
I want to say that dog story is crazy.
Yeah.
But the ultimate, your number one story, I have to say, is the one with the kitchen on the curb. That is going to probably go down all time.
That's
all-time high.
That's my all-time number one.
So moral of that story is make sure you have a payoff.
Yeah. Make sure you have a good attorney.
100%. And for me, my craziest story, and I don't think I will ever be able to trump it, is when the buyer died 3 days before closing. But with all of these stories, it really just shows that we can accomplish anything and we can overcome any obstacle that is thrown at us, because at the end of the day, we always do the right thing and we always have our client's best interest in mind.
Absolutely, we do. Yep.
So I really appreciate you coming here today. I can't wait for the next time.
Yep. Great.
And thank you again for listening to Coffee Talk with Mel. And today, it was brought by the Coffee Grinder in Warwick, Rhode Island. This is my special little coffee shop that I've really, really, really put all my love into. If you ever want to stop by, it's 961 Namquid Drive in Warwick, Rhode Island. And if you like to read, as I do, 2 bookshelves filled with books, you can come grab yourself a book. Again, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time for Real Estate Horror Stories Part 2.